wonderful to follow such remarks from two great speakers. Wonderful to be here and to see all of you here. This idea that Bill Blum keeps pointing out to us is a problem in our society. This fantasy that the U.S. government means well. There was actually a poll done in December of 2013 by Gallup in 65 countries asking what country on earth is the biggest threat to peace in the world. And who won overwhelmingly in almost all of those countries? The U.S., right? So the U.S. means well despite the will of those people. Right? So the Iraqis take polls, and a majority of them want the U.S. to get the hell out of their country, but we have these moral arguments for staying in Iraq for their benefit, right? And to be as careful getting out as we were reckless getting in and so forth. I was walking up here from Greenwich Village this morning, and I passed a restaurant, and on the big glass window it said, "Defending the American Table." Now, who the hell attacked it, right? And what is American about it? This current war is fundamentally and entirely about scary videos of people having their heads cut off. Right? Now, if anyone this week lost a job in Nebraska executing people, Saudi Arabia is hiring, and they're hiring executioners and they're hiring amputators, right? And better pay than Nebraska. So the United States government has no interest in opposing beheadings or burnings with missiles, right? What Saudi Arabia is doing with U.S. missiles in Yemen is no more moral than what it does to people on its streets with its swords, right? It's killing. It's unjustifiable murder with one weapon or another. And a U.S. foreign policy has absolutely no interest in discouraging murder or encouraging human rights. Unless perhaps your country has not been donating to the Clinton Foundation. The question that frames this panel, how is the United States working to confront and end the ISIS disaster? It isn't. It isn't. It is consciously working to expand it. The United States created the situation that allowed ISIS to arise, knowingly exacerbated that situation with the arms and the training and so forth into Syria. This young woman who told Jeb that his brother created ISIS had more knowledge and understanding and decency than anyone who works for any television network in this country. And this pretense of asking these Republican candidates, if you knew then what you know now, they did. We all did. It was known. It was glaringly obvious. These were lies that took people. This is based on the lie that a country having weapons somehow justifies going in and destroying it for decades to come. Is based on the lie that Hillary wasn't out there advocating for it and voting for it. It's all a deception. And then there's this gross misunderstanding that somehow the lies ended when Bush left office, and that the lies about Benghazi that created the disaster in Libya that Bill was talking about, the lies about the chemical weapons in Syria, the lies about the stranded people on the mountaintop, the lies about the Khorasan group that didn't exist, the lies about Russian invasions and airplanes shot down in Ukraine, the endless lies have never let up. They are the same. And so the United States is not engaged in making things better and does not intend to be. It is fueling resentment, and its attacks, which are killing civilians by the hundreds directly with bombs in Iraq and Syria, are the biggest recruitment tool, and were known to be and desired as the biggest recruitment tool, outdoing the torture in Abu Ghraib and so forth now, for anti-U.S. activism and militarism. And in 2013, when they wanted to send missiles into Syria, which Seymour Hersh exposed as a massive bombing campaign, not a couple of missiles here, and both political parties wanted it, and the media wanted it, every television network wanted it, Wall Street had Raytheon stock at record heights, everyone knew it was about to happen, and Obama said, you must look at these videos of children dying and be in favor of them dying, or in favor of me bombing Syria and killing more of them. Those are your two options. And we stopped that. And we stopped it with help from the past decade of peace activism that had Congress members running around saying, I don't want to be seen as the jerk who voted for another Iraq. I'm afraid to back this thing. They're so afraid to back wars now that they just let them happen with no vote yes or no. Operation Inherent Resolve, and they don't have the inherent decency to even take a position on it. We stopped it. But what happened when we stopped it? And the British stopped it, and the world stopped it, and people within the U.S. government stopped it. They kept the weapons flowing and the CIA trainers flowing and waited for a better propaganda moment to get their war that they wanted. They didn't do what needed to be done. And what needed to be done was a radical change in U.S. policy from war to peace. If you did that prison experiment with students where you make some of them the jailers and some of them the prisoners and waited for disaster to happen, but whenever the students were Muslim, you gave them automatic weapons. And then you came to the conclusion that Muslims are more violent. This would make as much sense as U.S. foreign policy when 80 to 90% of the weapons in the Middle East are made in the United States. You're arming a region of the globe and then creating chaos, creating desperation, fueling violence and anarchy, and then wondering why people are dying. So what do? First, you stop making it worse. You declare an arms embargo, you demand ceasefires, and the arms embargo is 3/4 of the way successful just by the United States alone, right? And if you can get these Sunni dictators and kings to join you in attacking Sunnis, you can get them to stop arming these people with weapons, which after all are coming from the United States in the first place in huge quantities. So you start a policy of disarmament. The weapons of mass destruction free Middle East was killed at the United Nations last week by the United States on behalf of Israel, right? That is not the policy of a government that's worried about decreasing violence in the Middle East. You send in actual aid for the amount of money that the United States spends on militarism, right? Just go back. Bernie Sanders was recently accused of once advocating a 50% cut in U.S. military spending, and of course swore he had never said any such commie pinko nonsense. His answer should have been, my God, that would just get us back to 2001 levels, right? And if you got back to 2001 levels and you had $200 or $300 billion and you didn't know what to do with it, tens of billions would end starvation and hunger worldwide, would end unclean drinking water worldwide. 23 billion is U.S. foreign aid. Double it, triple it, quadruple it, put it into use. Even Sanders says 70 billion would make education free in this country through college, like other countries do that don't bomb everywhere. You could have trains in New York City that get you someplace the same day you get on them. You could have high-speed rail, you could have solar, you could have wind, you could have a different world. You could save the physical planet with a fraction of what's spent on making it worse through militarism. So that the idea of world beyond war and of this book that we've produced, that I have 2 copies left for sale because we had a panel a minute ago, it is to create structures of nonviolence, of peace, legal, economic, social structures that don't, like the United States is unique in doing in the world, look at a problem and say, how can we make it worse with bombing, or should we do nothing, as if those are the 2 choices, right? Because every single war thus far has made things worse, and we keep thinking the next one's going to be the one that gets lucky. Militarism makes us less safe. There is not an upside. You go to warisacrime.org/less safe and read all the just retired generals and top officials and directors of national intelligence who admit that everything they're doing is counterproductive, who are knowingly making us less safe, not more safe. It is our #1 destroyer of the environment, the creation of the weapons, the testing and their use. It is the #1 eroder of our civil liberties, even when the wars are for freedom. We lose our freedoms. It militarizes our police forces. It erodes our economy. It impoverishes us. It does not enrich us. It does not create jobs. It destroys our morality. It makes murder acceptable in ways that so many other things are just beyond the pale. And it kills more people by how the money is not spent than by how it is. You could save so many lives with what is dumped into militarism. So there never was, in Vietnam or anywhere else, a good side to cheer for in a war, and there never will be. Non-violent approaches to tyranny and oppression are much more likely to succeed, and those successes, on average, last over twice as long. So the resort, when push comes to shove, needs to be to the strongest weapons we have, and they are not weapons of violence. We need to sort of get beyond the idea that we're going to fix war, that we're going to make it legal, that we're going to have a new weapon that's going to make it better and be so awful or so easy to use that war is going to end, which is what was thought of everything from the machine gun up through now the drone. We need to get to the understanding that war is going to kill us all unless the stuff underground that it's fought for kills us all first. And if we're going to have the resources to address the real dangers that actually threaten us, that should have us running scared like idiots rather than, you know, the beheader videos, we're going to need the resources that are now being wasted on warfare. We have to make that switch. We have this endless debate in this country around 45% of federal spending that's not war. And liberals want more of it, and conservatives want less of it, and both are in absolute agreement on pretending that the other 55% of the spending that Congress decides on doesn't exist and shouldn't be mentioned. But unless we start talking about, that is military spending, unless we start talking about moving money from horrible things to good things, we're going to be in trouble, and things are going to go from bad to worse. Thanks for having us here.